Today's tutorial is on this variation, still using the soap bubble technique, and these actually look like soap bubbles. So I guess I'm calling these an opalescent soap bubble nail. These kind of remind me of abalone shells, just have a nice pearlescent feel, and you can do a few different things with them to kind of get a different look. The middle one I've added some little 3D actual bubbles on, etc. Here's the video they're from, and let's get started. Our very first step is making our bubbles. We want about a teaspoon of dish soap, about a teaspoon of vegetable glycerin, and put that in about a cup, cup and a half, could be 2 cups, whatever you have, and whatever you're putting it in, you need enough space to be able to whip bubbles in it. The glycerin is super important. This is what gets you some larger bubbles in there, and this is what makes the bubbles more stabilized. So you can set this aside. The bubbles won't pop, but it will slowly, the water will kind of drain off of them and you will get drier bubbles. And that's what makes it easier to then apply to the nail and not have it slough off as much. The other key to your happiness with this technique is actually using a fan brush for this. It works great to whip the air into the bubbles to get the larger bubbles. Plus, it's the perfect applicator because the bubbles really stick to it because of the hairs of the brush for when you are trying to then apply it to the nail. Okay, once our bubbles are made, we are setting that aside, and we are not going to re-whip that up at all because we want the water to drain to the bottom. Okay, onto the nail. I am going to do 2 layers of this Gaoy liquid silver cat eye. It is a super clear silver, very fine particled silver cat eye. And we are just trying to get a reflective silver cat eye background on the nail. So we just want a lot of coverage and activation of the particles. So, and this is so clear, that's why I'm doing 2 coats. Any silver mag gel will work for this. This stuff is almost too clear to use for a base, but it'll work. You can see, so that's 2 coats. If you need to do a third, that's fine. We're just doing the base of the nail. Okay, now we are on to the fun stuff. This is the layer that's going to get the bubbles. This is a Gaoy 2347. It's in a little set. It's called mint green. They're all really great kind of jadey colors. And this is just more of a, it's a cat eye, and it's sort of a window glass kind of green color. So we're just doing a good medium coat of that on there. And now we're getting out our bubbles that we have not fluffed up anymore. And now we are just carefully swooshing it onto the nail, trying to make sure that the fan brush is parallel with the nail so we're not going to scrape the bristles into the wet polish. And when I say medium layer, I mean don't do a super thin coat of this polish. We want a good coating on there because I want a lot of it to go up into the bubbles. Now this is something that I just like to do. I don't know if it even makes a difference. I use the magnet for a second to see if it lifts the particles. You can't see what you're doing. And then I put it and I do a full cure on this. And this is what we should have. And you will notice the polish has been sort of sucked up into those bubbles when we put the bubbles on there. And we sort of have these little hairs sticking up off the top. So what we want to do now, you can clean it off with a little bit of rubbing alcohol if you want. Your little cloths are going to stick to all the little fuzzies sticking up. So do your best. And then we just want to lightly file those hairs off. We do not want to get rid of any of the raised bubble cell matrix on there because we're using that to our advantage. Okay, clean that up really well with alcohol when you're done. We don't want all the dusties in there. And this is what it should look like. And now we are going on to the step that gives this particular variation its signature look. We are getting out the alcohol inks. I am using a white and a blue, just a tiny bit of a blue. And I want these very diluted. I just want to bring some opaqueness and chalkiness into those cells. So I am just getting a little bowl of acetone off to the side and going in and just really sloppily painting it in there so it's getting into the cells and then really diluting it. So I just want to wash. And if it catches in some of the edges and corners, that's Great. I just want some interest. I don't want it completely opaque. I'm going to go in and just add some touches of the blue already mixed in with some white. So this is just a pale, just slight tone change, just again for interest. Also, I don't really like my little set of alcohol inks. I just got a cheapy Mizhse set and they're kind of, I need to get some better ones. Anyway, this is just what I have. This nail that I'm working on in this video is a fairly heavy-handed application of the alcohol ink, just so you know. Since some of the other ones, you don't have to cover the whole surface. You can kind of just do some swirls in there, just so you know. And this is what we should have. And now we're just going to go in and we're going to highlight a few cells with some silver mag gels. And I'm just going to use 2 different ones that have different particle sizes. Again, just for some interest and sparkle. I'm going to go in with the Aurora Queen. I can't remember the name of this collection. It's the Moonlight collection, I think. Something having to do with the moon. This is number 19, and it's just one of the finer particled ones. And you can see I'm being lazy here and just taking my tiny brush and dipping it straight onto the brush from the bottle. Because we're just going in and doing little cells. And again, on this, because this is going to be a textured chrome nail, I am not filling those cells up to the top. I want to use as little gel as possible and still have it react to the magnet. And I am flash curing each cell as I go, just for a couple seconds, just long enough to get it so the magnet particles won't move when I'm using the magnet on the next section. I probably did 3 or 4 cells with that first gel, and now I'm going to go in with the Kokoist water magnet, number 33. I think this is icy water. I like this one because it's a little more sparkly, even though for Kokoist, this is one of their finest particled ones in that particular collection. And this is what we should have. It's a little hard to see because everything's so white on this nail, but you know, the Kokoist, I did the same thing. Probably did maybe 4, 5 cells on that. Okay, now it is time to prep for our chrome. So we are going to go in with, I have the Nail Thoughts new Chrome It, which I'm really liking so far. It works really well, curing for 30 seconds across the board. Or Kupa, which is sort of my old standby. Sometimes I have to adjust it for certain powdered chromes, I'm noticing. 20 seconds, like instead of 30 seconds. Now, this is key for this step. We want as thin of a coat as possible on the nail, but we want to cover the whole nail because obviously that's what the chrome is going to stick to. So I'm wiping some on and then I'm just stabbing it into all of the little cells. And I'm just trying to smush it around, making sure, like looking at it in the light, making sure that I still have really nice sort of craters going on with that cell matrix. And doing this will put a huge amount of micro bubbles that are all stuck in your applicator brush. So if you are looking at the black bristles and you're like, what is that? That's what that is. That haziness or weirdness, it's tiny, tiny air bubbles. And this is what it should look like when you're done. See, in the light, you can see how those craters are still extremely well defined and we have really high side walls still left from our cell matrix. Now we are applying our chrome. I'm using Ocean Glimmer by the FNNZ, the Finns Amazon brand, but any good mid-green chrome will work. And then I'm going to do a teeny tiny bits here and there with a pink. And that's mostly to give us that slight iridescent soap bubble feel. One thing to note about this technique, it's really going to rip up your little eyeshadow brushes because we have all of these raised ridges that we are trying to apply chrome to, just so you know. And I'm really just doing tiny little pickups here and there of that pink, just so there's, again, just a little bit more interest in the chrome layer. Once I'm happy with all of my chroming, I'm going to go in with my gloved finger and I'm going to, as much as possible, try to buff it out to get all of the loose chrome out of there so that I am actually getting a chrome effect and not a glittery effect. And, you know, you'll probably end up ripping your gloves, etc. And this is what we should have. Okay, now we're going to go in and we're going to do another very thin, stabby top coat to seal in the chrome and prep us for the next step. Cure that for 30 seconds. And now we're going to take our file and we're going to carefully and lightly file the nail to get rid of the chrome just on the ridges of our cell matrix that we have, because we want to re-expose that original green polish. So we want to see those bubble outlines. The effect we're doing is just to break up the overall chrome, and that's how we get this cool cupping look, and it starts to look reminiscent of like an abalone shell or opal patterns. And because we lightly sealed that chrome layer in, we can check our progress by just wiping the nail down with alcohol, which temporarily gets it wet again so that you can see the colors that are being exposed. If we hadn't sealed the chrome in, you really wouldn't be able to wipe it down with alcohol to see the effects you're actually getting from the filing. Once you have that how you like it, we are now at the point in this tutorial where we can take several different paths to finish this nail off. We can just call it a day, put the top coat on, probably need a couple layers if you want it a smooth surface, and that is what I did on the nail on the left, and there you go, finished. If you are lucky like I was here and you still have a lot of divots and ridges left, so you have a really good textured surface still, which sometimes you aren't going to get because the polish, you just didn't get enough rise in the bubble matrix, so it will depend sometimes. But if you do have this left still, you could always go in with a secondary chrome and sort of do some highlights with another chrome, and then you can still file it back again and then do a top coat. And I know what you're thinking. Why don't we use some blue chrome for highlights? I know, I keep wanting to do it too, but when you use blue chrome on a nail like this, the nail starts to reflect yellow back at you. And I've just popped the video back in and you can see it's that lower nail has the yellow reflecting back, and it looks super cool. It's just it's getting away from the soap bubble look. So that's just another variation you can do. This is also one of the reasons I like to put some blue alcohol ink in the nail, because blue feels like such a natural addition to it, but you can't do it with the blue chrome and keep that greeny soap bubble look. So here you can see I actually ended up wiping that blue chrome off and then just did the top coat and kept this a simple one. And the last little variation you can do on this, or at least that I'm showing, there's lots of other variations you could come up with. You can just put some 3D water droplets on it with, whatever you have, a pudding gel, a thicker top coat, and flash cure each one. And you can see how cute that looks, especially on the nail on the left is a nail that I had a lot of tinier bubbles on, and the little 3D bubbles just fit in perfect with that. And then what I also did on this one was I went back with a teeny tiny bit of a pink based chrome and just did a tiny little touch of the chrome just like on the top of the bubble to just give it a little more of that iridescent bubble effect. And here are all of our variations, and we are finally done. Hopefully all of the variations at the end weren't too confusing, and have fun making some bubble nails. Thanks for watching again.